Hi, my name's Taylor and welcome back to Coaster Studios. This is part 2 of the 2-part video that I'm doing to discuss ways to improve your theme park experience because, like I said in the last video, unfortunately the theme parks are closed, meaning we can't be out there to cover all these great new attractions debuting around the world this year. In part 1, I discussed some things that you might be bringing into the theme park, and that directly relates to, I think, the different types of loose article systems that you might find at the parks, because it's a big world out there and there are lots of different ways to handle the concept of loose articles, aka what should you be bringing on the ride, what should you not be bringing on the ride, and what do you do with the things that you can't bring on the ride with you. So that's what we're going to be doing in this video, because I've encountered a lot of different systems out there and I like to divide them up into 2 different categories. There's those that work and those that do not work, what is convenient and what is inconvenient. So let's get into it. Now, to cover all the different systems out there, I want to start by walking through the process of getting to the ride. So let's start with outside the ride entrance. Unfortunately, this is often where we encounter lockers. And there are 2 different types. There are those that are free and those that are not. Now, I say free, but really it's not free. It's worked into the price of admission. I mean, you look at a place like Universal or even Lagoon, every time you come to a ride entrance, you just put your stuff in and it's a breeze. It improves your experience so much more, because at theme parks, you're paying some expensive prices for food, souvenirs, whatever it is. And so one of the things you don't want to have to worry about is paying for a locker. So it's so much nicer if you can just pay it in advance. You're not thinking about that price you paid to get into the park. If they are going to charge for lockers, at least offer a price that you can pay to have a transferable locker that works all day. And actually, when they offer this, it tends to be a decent deal. You know, it'll be probably $6, $8, and you can just send that locker from ride to ride. A lot of the SeaWorld parks have that, some Six Flags parks do, some Cedar Fair. I personally prefer the systems that have the loose articles in the station, but again, there are some there that work and some that do not. So I know myself, I like to have a camera with me in the queue line, because sometimes the best shots you can get of a ride are when you're in the queue line, because that is when the ride is all around you. And so when you're putting your stuff in a locker, unfortunately, that limits those possibilities. I mean, you look at the Incredible Hulk or Rip Ride Rocket at Universal, these are some situations where they say, you have to put your stuff in a locker. We're gonna make it free, but you can't have anything with you in line because we're gonna have metal detectors. We're gonna make sure that there's nothing in your pockets. And from a safety concern, that's a flawless system. There's no way that you can get around it. But from a guest satisfaction standpoint, well, I mean, you're not gonna have your phone with you in line. I mean, it eliminates people trying to sneak their phones onto the ride to get illegal footage and whatnot, but I mean, what are you supposed to do to occupy that 90-minute wait, for instance? So that is one of those downsides. I'll tell you one situation that does not work is when you do that same thing, but instead of making the lockers free, you have to pay for them. In my opinion, the worst example of this is something that they no longer do, and that was on Steel Vengeance and Twisted Timbers. They said, yeah, you can't have anything with you in line. It essentially makes those rides an upcharge. On top of that, it then becomes a safety concern because people will start trying to sneak stuff in because they don't want to pay to put their stuff in a locker. And so now, and that becomes even more of a problem than what they originally had. So that's, in my opinion, what not to do. But lockers, you know, it can be a hit or miss. I'll tell you, one of my least favorite types of lockers are at the SeaWorld parks. They're a lot smaller. And you know, in last week's video, I showed you the size of my bag that I bring into parks. Stuffing that in a SeaWorld locker, I mean, it's pretty small, so you really gotta pack it in there. And sometimes I think what I bring into a park directly relates to how big the lockers are. If it's a small locker, I'm probably gonna not bring in as much camera equipment and stuff. So let's move on from the ride entrance to now talk about the station. And you know, we were on the topic of lockers. There are some parks that have lockers in the station. And again, some work, some do not. I'll give you one example that I don't really know if I like it or not, but it's X2. They have lockers in the station, and you know, you gotta pay for them, which kind of sucks. But also, you could do some sort of rider swap there where you have someone just hold your stuff in that little locker area while the other person rides, and then you just switch. So it's not a conventional system at all. I'll tell you one place that does it a lot better, that has a similar setup, is Dododonpa at Fuji Q. And Takabisha has this as well, but they have the locker setup, but instead of being off to the side or anything, it is right in front of the gates. And so you just go in, you put your stuff in the locker, it's free, and then you get the key, and it goes around your wrist, and it's not gonna fly off or anything. You go with the ride, and then when you are exiting, you go back and retrieve your stuff. And that is a really nice system because it doesn't hold up operations. The same cannot be said for Fujiyama and Steel Dragon 2000, where they say, okay, we're gonna have the same type of thing where, again, you put your stuff in the locker and you get the key that you ride with it, but instead, we're gonna put it on the other side of the gate. So now it is holding up operations. And this is why some of those rides are notorious for having some of the slowest dispatches out there, because really, it's the lockers. So if you don't have lockers, you're probably gonna have bins. And you know, what I'll say about this is bins may be a bit more convenient, but lockers, you're guaranteed to know that everything is secure, nothing can go wrong. The same cannot be said for bins. I mean, people have been known to steal stuff. I've had a souvenir drink bottle stolen from a bin. Thankfully, not a bag or anything, but I mean, while we're on the topic of souvenir drink bottles, one of the things I hate most about bins is that someone will have a drink and the bottle will fall over on top of all of everyone's stuff, soaking everything. And I can't imagine the ride operators like that too much either, because then they're having to clean up everything, all the guests are mad. And so it can just cause a lot of different issues. And that's on top of the fact that when you have bins, it's a lot of crowding over one small area. I mean, let's say you have one bin per train. I mean, some guests will put their stuff in the wrong bin, and that just causes all sorts of issues, because they'll lock the bin so that each bin has, you know, corresponds to a train, but not everyone understands that. So in my opinion, one of the best ways to do it is, if you're gonna have bins, do what Dollywood has. You have your stuff, you're about to cross the train to put it over, but the ride operators stop you. They'll take your stuff and they'll put it in the bin. It also helps from an operational standpoint. So I really like what Dollywood does. I'll tell you, one of the best bin systems I've seen are on some mock coasters. Especially, you can find a bunch of these at Europa Park, but this is when you have essentially 3 rows and they're stacked on top of each other, and they have flaps that'll open up, you put your stuff in there, they'll close so it's secure, and then you'll go around to the side and pick up your things from the opposite end. So the guest flow is significantly improved. You're putting your items in one way and then you're picking them up on the other. And it also helps from an operation standpoint. And so this is really popular in Europe. Terran has it, for instance, and that's really nice. I'd love to see more of those come to America. So we've talked about the good, we've talked about the bad, we've talked about the ugly. Let's talk about the brilliant. And there's only one coaster that has this system, and I think it should go everywhere. It is an absolutely brilliant system, and you can find it on Yukon Striker at Canada's Wonderland. And in my opinion, this baggage system is better than the actual ride. This is brilliant. So the way it works is, you put your stuff in the bin and it goes up a track over onto the other side of the station. So when you're on the train, if you look up, you'll see these bins. You'll then drop down and you pick up your stuff on the other side. It is so cool. I mean, and it also eliminates the possibility of something spilling on your bags, because they'll have a sink to the other side. They make you empty your drinks before it goes in the system, because it kind of slants up, and you don't have to worry about theft because the bins line up with that train. So it'll be there waiting for you when your ride is over. I think that is the definition of innovation. It satisfies everything. You can have your cameras with you in line, your phones, you put everything in there so you are totally satisfied. You can not have to worry about that at all during the ride, and then you just pick it up when you're done. It is so incredibly easy, and if someone from Cedar Fair is watching this, more please. So we've talked about a lot of different loose article systems in this video. Some are paid, some are free, some are nice, some are not. So let me know down in the comments below if this helped you. If you're new to the channel, I'd love if you subscribe. We do theme park videos from places all around the world, and even when they're not open, there's still lots of content out there. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you guys next time.